Declined? Run it again, David said. His tone calm but firm as a machine beeped red for the second time. The luxury boutique fell quiet for a moment. A few heads turned, curious, some already smirking. In front of the counter, David stood tall, his dark skin illuminated under the polished lights of the store. He wasn't dressed like the typical shoppers around him. No flashy suits, no glittering jewelry. Just a plain white t-shirt under a navy blazer, dark jeans, and sneakers that were clean but simple. The cashier, a young white man with slick-back hair and a sharp suit, raised an eyebrow. He swiped the black card again, slower this time, as if to prove he was giving a chance. The same word flashed across the small screen. Declined. Sir, the cashier said, his lips curving into a smirk. Your card isn't working. Do you have another one? His voice was pitched louder than necessary, making sure the shoppers nearby could hear. A soft laugh escaped from a woman trying on a necklace a few feet away. Her companion leaned in and whispered something, and both of them giggled. David's jaw flexed. His voice stayed even. It should work. Try it once more. The cashier rolled his eyes dramatically, but he did as asked, sliding the card for a third time. Declined. This time, the sound of snickers rippled across the boutique. A teenage girl pulled out her phone, pretending to text but clearly recording the scene. A man near the sunglasses display shook his head and muttered, Happens all the time. The cashier tapped the counter, smirk now fully visible. Sir, this is a luxury boutique. People come in here pretending they can afford something, but we don't have time for that. I'm not pretending, David replied evenly, his eyes locked on the man. Another employee, a woman with her hair tied in a severe bun, walked over. She glanced at the receipt printer that hadn't produced anything, and then at David. Her gaze traveled over his sneakers, his simple shirt, his calm posture. She folded her arms. Sir, maybe you should try another store, she said coolly. This briefcase is very expensive. David's hand rested lightly on the glass counter. He didn't raise his voice. I know how much it costs. I asked you to process my card. The woman tilted her head, her tone sharpening. We've already tried 3 times. Please don't waste our time or block the register. We have other customers. Behind David, the whispers grew louder, probably maxed out. Why come here if you can't afford it? Trying to impress someone, maybe. David inhaled slowly, pulling his phone from his pocket. He stepped aside, dialing his private banker. His voice dropped as he explained the situation, but the store was so tense that everyone strained to listen. Yes, this is David Carter. My card is being declined. Yes, I know the balance. No, there's no issue on my side. He paused. Oh, a temporary hold? Because of unusual activity? I see. Please lift the freeze immediately. He hung up and walked back to the counter. It's cleared now. Try again. The cashier let out a short laugh, shaking his head as if this was all some performance. Sir, we've heard that line before. The old call the bank trick. If you don't have the funds, just say so. Run it again, David repeated. The woman snorted. This is ridiculous. People really think they can bluff their way into luxury. But the cashier slid the card again. This time the machine gave a different beep, and the screen displayed approved. The smirk slid right off the cashier's face. His mouth opened slightly. He looked at the woman, who blinked in disbelief. David extended his hand. The receipt. The cashier fumbled, printing out quickly and passing across. David signed calmly, picked up the sleek Italian leather briefcase he had chosen, and started toward the door. He barely made it 2 steps before a deep voice called, Excuse me, sir. A large mall security guard in a dark uniform blocked the boutique entrance. His expression was stern, his stance wide. What seems to be the problem? David asked evenly. The female employee raised her hand sharply, her voice carrying across the store. This man was trying to commit fraud. His card was declined multiple times. We can't allow that. The guard's eyes narrowed as he turned to David. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me. Gasps filled the boutique. A man near the watches muttered, Knew it, and shook his head. The teenage girl with the phone zoomed in, recording every second. The crowd outside began peeking in, sensing drama. David held up the bag with the briefcase inside. The purchase was approved. I have the receipt. The guard didn't look impressed. We'll need to verify that. You'll have to come with me. David's patience thinned. Do you check every customer like this? Or just the ones who look like me? The guard's jaw tightened. Don't make this difficult. The woman smirked, arms folded tightly across her chest, satisfied that she had backup now. "You see? He's causing a scene. We told you." David set the bag gently back on the counter. He reached into his wallet and pulled out the receipt. Holding it up, "Here's your proof. The transaction went through." The guard snatched it, glancing at it, but not really reading. "This doesn't prove identity. You could have used someone else's card." A wave of murmurs spread through the boutique. Some shoppers nodded, feeding into the narrative that he was a fraud. Others looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. David took a step closer to the guard. His voice was controlled but powerful now. "I said, do not touch me. I made a purchase legally and correctly. You have no reason to detain me." But the guard didn't back down. His hand hovered near David's arm, as if ready to grab him. "Sir, you're coming with me." End of discussion. The tension thickened like fog. The cashier smirked again, leaning against the counter with folded arms, confident that the problem was being handled. The woman actually whispered to him, loud enough for David to hear, "I told you, these people always try something." The whispers behind him cut deeper than any insult. "Scammer. Probably stole the card. Why would someone like him be here anyway?" David's nostrils flared, but his voice remained steady. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The guard squared his shoulders. "Then we'll call the police. Your choice." The weight of the words hit the crowd. Some leaned in, hungry for the unfolding spectacle. Phones were lifted higher now, capturing every angle. David stood there, surrounded by luxury displays worth thousands of dollars, yet treated like a criminal. And through it all, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He simply stood tall, his gaze unwavering. The guard's hand finally closed around David's arm. Gasp shot through the boutique. Someone muttered, "Oh, it's going down now." The cashier chuckled under his breath. But David's voice cut to the air like steel. "Take your hand off me. Now." The authority in his tone made the guard pause. Just for a second, enough for the crowd to sense a shift, though they didn't know why. The woman huffed. "Why are we wasting time? Call the police already. He doesn't belong here." David turned his head slowly, his eyes meeting hers. The calm in his expression wasn't weakness. It was something else, something she couldn't place. And while the employees, the guard, and the crowd thought they were watching the humiliation of a man whose card had been declined, what they didn't know was that the truth was standing right in front of them. A truth that would flip the entire scene upside down. Because the man they were trying to drag out of this boutique wasn't just a customer. He was the very man whose decisions could determine the future of this mall itself. And very soon, everyone in that room would find out exactly who he was. The guard's grip lingered on David's arm, and the atmosphere grew tighter, like the whole store was holding its breath. Phones tilted higher, some people even stepping closer to get a better shot of the unfolding drama. A small group of teenagers near the doorway whispered, excitedly, "Man, this is better than TV," one of them said, grinning as he recorded. "Yeah, he's about to get dragged out," another added. David didn't move. He didn't resist, but his voice was commanding. "I told you, take your hand off." The guard frowned. He was used to people breaking down in moments like this, pleading, apologizing, trying to talk their way out. But the man in front of him was calm, collected, even, powerful in his stillness. It made the guard hesitate for just a second. The female employee broke that hesitation with her sharp voice. "Don't just stand there. Do your job. He's disrupting the store." The cashier smirked, egging on. "Yeah, come on, man. Don't let him play you. He probably stole that card." A ripple of agreement spread through some onlookers. Others shifted uncomfortably, sensing how ugly the situation was becoming, but unwilling to step in. David's eyes flicked around the boutique. The way the crowd watched him wasn't just curiosity. It was judgment. He could feel the weight of their assumptions pressing down. Assumptions born not from facts, but from the color of his skin, the simplicity of his clothes, the ease with which they decided he didn't belong. The guard tightened his grip. "Sir, you're coming with me. Now." David exhaled slowly. "If you insist on making a mistake," he said quietly, "then make sure you're ready for the consequences." The words weren't shouted. They weren't even said with anger, but the confidence in them made the guard's hand falter again. Something about this man didn't fit the story being painted. The teenage girl recording whispered to her friend, "Yo, he doesn't even look scared." But the woman employee scoffed. "Consequences? Please. People like him always play victim when they're caught. David looked at her steadily. People like me? She folded her arms tighter. Yes. Always trying to act like you're on the same level as our actual clients. This is a high-end store. You don't get to walk in and pretend. Pretend? David asked, voice calm, though his eyes were sharp. You think you know what I can afford? The cashier snorted. Bro, come on. Look at you. That outfit? Those sneakers? You're in the wrong place. David's gaze cut to him. And yet, I just purchased one of your most expensive items. Paid in. Full. On a stolen card, the cashier shot back. We all know it. The whispers behind David flared louder now. Yeah, he doesn't look like he belongs here. Probably a scam. They should just cuff him already. The guard shifted, clearly more influenced by the employees and the receipt in his hand. Sir, enough. We're going to the office. If everything checks out, you'll be free to go. If not, he let the sentence hang, the implication clear. David's hand clenched at his side, though his face remained calm. And if I refuse? The guard's tone hardened. Then we escalate. And trust me, you don't want that. A man in a suit at the back of the boutique muttered, he should just cooperate. If he's innocent, what's the problem? David turned his head slightly, catching the comment. His voice rose enough for everyone to hear. The problem, he said, his words sharp but measured, is that innocence doesn't protect people like me from being humiliated first, from being assumed guilty before anyone bothers with facts. The crowd shifted, some averting their eyes, others rolling theirs as if he was being dramatic. The woman scoffed loudly. Oh, please, don't make this about race. David's eyes locked on hers. If it isn't about race, then why did you assume I couldn't pay? Before you even ran my card? Why did you call security the second it declined, instead of letting me resolve it with my bank like any other customer? Her lips tightened, but she didn't answer. The silence that followed was thick. For a moment, even the guard hesitated, but the cashier chuckled, breaking it. Man, you're good with words. You almost had me. There. He turned to the crowd, gesturing mockingly. Y'all hear that? Always playing the same card. Always an excuse. Some laughed. Others nodded. And once again, the tide of assumption turned against David. The guard tugged his arm again. Enough talking. Let's go. This time, David didn't resist, but he didn't move either. His feet stayed planted on the polished floor, his tall frame unmoving. His voice was low, steady, dangerous now. You're going to regret this. The teenage girl recording whispered, Oh, he's serious. The guard began to apply more force, but before he could drag David forward, a new voice entered the scene. What's going on here? Heads turned. A middle-aged man in a tailored gray suit stepped into the boutique. He had an air of authority, his ID badge clipped neatly to his jacket pocket. Mall management. His eyes flicked to the guard's hand on David's arm, then to the employees standing smugly. Behind the counter, the woman jumped in first. Thank goodness you're here. This man tried to use a declined card, and then he got aggressive when we stopped him. The cashier added quickly, Yeah, we caught him before he could get away with anything. The manager's brows furrowed. Is that so? He turned to the guard. And you've detained him? Yes, sir, the guard replied. We were about to take him to the office. David's voice cut through, clear and calm. I made a purchase. My card was temporarily frozen by the bank. It was approved on the 4th attempt. Here's my receipt. He held it out. The manager took it, scanning it carefully. He looked at the payment status. The approval code, the timestamp. His expression shifted slightly. This receipt is valid, the manager said slowly. The cashier stammered. But the manager held up a hand. Valid. He looked at David. Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience. But the woman scoffed loudly. You're not seriously buying this, are you? He probably tricked the system. The manager's eyes narrowed at her. Enough. The guard released David's arm reluctantly. The shift in the room was palpable. Some of the crowd began murmuring again, this time less certain, a few even embarrassed at their eagerness to believe the worst. David adjusted his blazer, his face still calm, though his eyes carried fire. He turned to the employees. This isn't about a card. This is about the way you treated me before you even knew the facts. The The way you assumed I didn't belong here, the woman muttered. We were protecting the store. Protecting it from what? David asked sharply. From a paying customer? The silence after his words was deafening. The manager cleared his throat. Sir, again, I apologize. I'll handle this with my staff. But David's gaze didn't leave the employees. You think this ends with an apology? The cashier shifted uncomfortably. The smirk was gone now. The woman crossed her arms. Tighter, but her confidence had cracks in it. The crowd, sensing tension, stayed rooted in place. Phones were still recording. No one wanted to miss whatever was about to happen. David bent down, picked up the leather briefcase, and held it firmly. His eyes scanned the room, the employees, the guard, the gawking crowd. And with calm certainty, he said, I don't forget disrespect. A ripple of whispers ran through the boutique again. The guard frowned, uneasy now. The manager cleared his throat again, clearly sensing that this was no ordinary customer. And while the employees thought they had escaped the situation with only a warning from management, they were wrong. Because David wasn't just a man with a receipt. He wasn't just another shopper who happened to win an argument. He was someone far more powerful than they could imagine. And the humiliation they had tried to force upon him was about to circle back in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. The truth was coming, and when it arrived, it would leave everyone in that boutique stunned into silence. The boutique remained tense even after the guard released David's arm. Phones still hovered in the air, cameras rolling. No one wanted to stop watching. No one dared to move. The hum of the mall outside seemed to fade beneath the pressure inside this one store. David stood with a briefcase in hand, his presence commanding even without a raised voice. The employees, who had just moments ago worn smug expressions, now shifted. Uncomfortably, the guard avoided his gaze, and the manager kept glancing between them, sensing an invisible line had been crossed. David's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glancing briefly at the screen before. Answering, his voice dropped lower, but in the silence, everyone could still hear. Yes, I'm here at the mall, he said. The purchase went through after the hold was lifted. Yes, I know. I'll be meeting with them shortly. He hung up, slipped the phone back into his blazer, and looked around the boutique. His eyes landed on the cashier first. You said I didn't belong here, David said, his tone even, that I was pretending, that I couldn't possibly afford what I was buying. The cashier swallowed, his earlier arrogance replaced with a nervous twitch of the lips. I was just doing my job. David tilted his head. Was it your job to smirk at me? To make sure everyone could hear? That my card declined? To assume I was a thief before I had the chance to explain? The cashier's throat bobbed, but no words came. David turned his gaze to the woman. And you called security before you even confirmed what happened. You didn't ask questions. You didn't listen. You decided. Her arms tightened across her chest. We can't take risks. We have to protect the store. David's eyes narrowed. Protected from who? From customers like me? From people who don't fit the picture you had in your head of who deserves to shop here? Her lips pressed into a thin line, and though she tried to hold her ground, her silence spoke, louder than any defense. The crowd shifted, whispering again. A few who had mocked him earlier now looked uneasy, realizing they had joined the wrong side of the spectacle. The teenage girl lowered her phone slightly, chewing her lip. David placed the briefcase back on the counter gently, then looked at the manager. You said you'd handle it. I hope you understand what that means. The manager straightened his suit nervously. Yes, sir. I'll speak with them directly after. I promise this kind of behavior won't happen again. But David didn't nod. He didn't smile. He simply looked at him with an expression that made the manager swallow hard. At that moment, a second man entered the boutique. He was sharply dressed, with an earpiece tucked into his ear, his walk purposeful. He spotted David instantly and moved toward him. Mr. Carter, the man said respectfully, ignoring everyone else. Your car is ready downstairs. The meeting with the mall board is set up. They're waiting for you in the executive lounge. Gasps erupted around the room. The title slipped out, Mr. Carter, and it carried weight. The guard blinked. Wait, The man with the earpiece looked annoyed at the scene before him. What happened here? David didn't answer right away. He let the silence stretch, let the employees and crowd stew in their discomfort. Finally, he said, ask them. The woman's face paled. The cashier dropped his eyes to the counter. The guard's hand slipped behind his back awkwardly. The man with the earpiece frowned at them. Do you people even realize who this is? The store manager's eyes widened, his lips parting. Carter Enterprises. His voice cracked. David finally nodded. Yes. The name spread to the crowd like wildfire. Whispers rose into shocked exclamations. That's him. The David Carter? No way. He owns half the tech companies in the city. I read about him in Forbes. The teenage girl who had been recording lowered her phone, her cheeks burning. Oh my God. The cashier stumbled back a step, his face pale now. The woman's arms fell to her sides, her confidence shattered. The guard looked like he wanted to disappear. David's eyes swept the room. Every face now transformed, judgment replaced by shame, ridicule replaced by awe. He picked up the briefcase again, his voice steady as ever. I walked in here as a customer. I expected to be treated like one. Instead, I was humiliated, mocked, and nearly dragged out in front of strangers. And why? His eyes locked on the employees. Because you judged me before you knew me. Because you decided I didn't fit your idea of who belonged in this store. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. David turned to leave, but then he paused. He set the briefcase down once more, pulling out his phone. With a few swipes, he dialed a number and put it on speaker. The call rang once. Before being answered, Mr. Carter, a professional voice said, "The board is ready for you." David's eyes never left the employees as he replied, "I'll be there shortly. But before we begin, I want the boutique that humiliated me added to the agenda. We'll be discussing their contract with this mall." The woman's face drained of color. The cashier let out a strangled sound, his hands trembling slightly. "Yes, sir." The voice on the phone said immediately, "We'll prepare the documents." David ended the call, slipped the phone back into his pocket, and picked up the briefcase. One last time, he looked at the employees, his eyes sharp. Next time, remember this moment before you. Decide who belongs and who doesn't. The guard cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Carter, David cut him off. "You put your hands on me without cause. Think carefully about the next time you let bias make your decisions." The guard swallowed, nodding quickly, shame written across his face. The manager stepped forward desperately. "Mr. Carter, please, this was a misunderstanding. Don't hold it against the store." David's gaze swept him once, cold and unreadable. "You'll see soon enough what I hold against them." And with that, he walked out. The boutique was left in stunned silence. The employees stood frozen, the crowd still, whispering furiously. Some had the decency to look ashamed for how they'd laughed earlier. Others just stood there, wide-eyed, still processing the turn of events. The teenage girl who had recorded everything whispered to her friend, "He's the CEO, and I laughed at him." David's footsteps echoed against the marble floor of the mall as he walked toward the executive lounge. People who had mocked him just moments ago now stared in awe there, whispers following him like shadows. The truth had come out. The humiliation had flipped. The ones who had ridiculed him now carried the shame. And David Carter, the black CEO they thought didn't belong, had reminded everyone exactly who he was. He disappeared into the executive lounge, the doors closing behind him, leaving the boutique and everyone in it to grapple with the consequences of their judgment. Because respect isn't about how someone looks or how they dress or what assumptions you make when their card declines. Respect is about humanity. And those who fail to show it, they just learn the price of their arrogance. So tell me, what would you have done if you were standing in that boutique? Would you have spoken up or stayed silent like the crowd? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe to Residential Stories.